Good day, students. In this short tutorial, we're going to go through the steps that you'll need to follow to link a shared library to your own computers in OneDrive. So the first thing you need to do, this is specifically aimed at third years, but all the years that have access to this, the BIM Mokana library and the OKU 300 library will have access to this resource. So for the third years, you're working on a project in Cape Town, and we've provided a lot of data that you can use. Okay, so basically there is a BIM library which you can access, and we're busy creating a GIS library because I'm teaching Qgis this year, so I'm going to teach a lot more of these principles that you can use to access GIS open source data. So in a nutshell, these libraries, if you want to use them efficiently, need to be linked to your OneDrive on your own machine. So if you go to your own machine, if I go to OneDrive, now some of the data is linked directly to my OneDrive. So if I go to project, let's go to BIM library, you'll see that these files have link symbols to them. So I just want to talk you through how you establish a link to your own machine. So I've got a link to GIS. So it just means if I'm using GIS information on this computer, I can quickly access this data without downloading information all the time. You can simply download it and build your own library, but if you want to access our shared libraries, this is what you'll need to do. So for example, the third years, you'll have a project in Cape Town. So if you want to access both of these projects, you can either just select the one folder at a time, or you can go to module files and then link the project data file itself. I would recommend that you link and unlink each project type as you need it, okay? Because the more of these links, which is this icon here, add shortcut to OneDrive, you're literally adding a shortcut to your OneDrive in essence. If you have too many of these, it might slow down your OneDrive data, okay? The download and upload of data. So just remember, the bigger the library, the more information. If you are moving data, the longer this will take. But in essence, I'm just going to quickly show you how I would link the Cape Town. So if I click this icon, it'll tell me that it's adding a shortcut to OneDrive. Now, if you go to your File Explorer on your computer with OneDrive and you go to OneDrive, if you give it a couple seconds, you'll notice that you'll have a new OneDrive link folder. Now, what I recommend you do is once it's established this link, move this to the correct folder. So I'm going to move it to OKU, for example. Then I'm going to move it to OKU 300. Okay, so in OKU 300, you'll see that I'm going to have this link to the Cape Town folder. And here, I've built in a whole lot of information for all of you to use. So there's drawings, examples, there's some families, there's a former model, how to build these former sites. So I've built a whole lot of information here. If you want to build your former model, there will be a video on how to do this as well. Okay, so how I set that up and with the data. Okay, then Qgis, which we're going to be using now. I've got the data, I've got an aerial photograph, okay, that I'm going to use. Okay, so there's a lot of information in here that I'm going to be using as well. Okay, but in essence, I'm going to be using another library to access this data because technically it's the same data. Okay, so I think let's just get cracking with the video. So the first thing I need to do is once I've connected my library, I'm going to open up Qgis. And this is an introduction to Qgis for those of you that are interested in getting access to this data. So Cape Town have released all of their data for a lot of their open source data, and it's very easy to access. You just have to know a bit of GIS. Okay, so once you open up Qgis, you're going to start a new template, a new project. And what I do is I first quickly go and add the link. So if you're using the lab machines, you're going to have to do this every time. You're going to have to link this information every time, okay? Because the lab machines are preset and they will reset once you switch them off. So you'll have to reload these connections. So the first thing I am going to do is make sure that I have the correct connections so that I can view the data, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some new XYZ tiles. So I'm going to load connections. So I'm going to go to OneDrive. And remember, I've done this previously, so BIM library, GIS, I'm going to go to Qgis. Okay, I'm going to go to X and Y, I'm going to load these. So I'm going to load these data sets. These are all aerial satellite data sets. Okay, and I might, if you don't have OpenStreetMap, just add that as well. Okay, so that's all I need for now. I'm going to press import, and you'll see it'll add these to my project. Now the Cape Town data set comes from a different connection. You need to link a new connection. So I'm going to load another connection. Go back to OneDrive. Okay, wherever you're going to link this information, okay, GIS. So with these links as well, only link the information that's relevant. So if you're not using ArchiCAD, don't link the ArchiCAD information, okay, and AutoCAD. So you can remove these links as well. So GIS, so I want to go to Qgis and I want this data connection. Open that. Okay. That's what I'm looking for, and I'm going to say import. So it will set up your work environment to access these data sets. The first thing I would do is import OpenStreetMap so I can find and locate myself. So I'm now going to zoom around the map and find the site where I'm working. Okay, OpenStreetMaps is quite a neat map, open map system that will allow you to navigate and find locations quite easily. Okay. Qgis will require some coordinates. So if you want to find a place, you might have to import coordinates, but then you have to understand which geographical system you're using. This does get quite complex, and there are a lot of videos on how to do this out there. But I'll start sharing these videos with all of you later on. Okay, so this is our site, Green Market Square. So what is quite amazing about the data set that they've issued, well, City of Cape Town have released this data, and there's such a rich data set here. So I just want to explain how to use this data. So this is all georeference. If I grab the latest aerial imagery and I pull this in over my site, you'll notice it'll stack these in as layers. So every time you pull the connection in, it will overlay it as a layer. So you can control the layer settings. If you go to properties, you can set the transparency, you can style these, you can do some, you can also change the way they look. So you can also change these to black and white, and there's a whole lot of, so you can see, you can go and sometimes these are locked. You might have to export it as another image and then only export the information you're looking for. There's a whole different work, but you see here you can switch on grayscales, you name it. You can also make it transparent so you can see the information below. Okay, so if you play with this and apply, you can start seeing the map information below. So you've got a lot of utility in this application to kind of set up your site data from the get-go. But what is amazing about this, for example, so let me just zoom out a bit, you'll see that these data sets will take time to load. These are massive data sets at a very high resolution. So just bear in mind this will get slow sometimes. But what is amazing is these are very high-res images that you can use in your projects. Okay. Alright, gathering information. In addition to this, I've also linked, if you want to use shapefiles and things like if you want to get the contours, this is also something that they've published for free as well. So I'm just going to quickly give you this demo as well so you understand how to pull in contours. They're not that usable. There's a bit of a work process you've got to go through in order to use them. But that's something that I'll be issuing at a later date to help you guys process shapefiles, for example. So I'm just going to go and load a shapefile just so that you understand how this is all going to work together. So BIM library, GIS, and we go to projects, Cape Town. Okay, and I'm going to be building these data sets for a lot of these other projects that we do. Okay, so if I want the contours for the whole of Cape Town, I can simply drag and drop the shapefile. So you can only drag and drop a shapefile in, and now what's quite amazing is you can see it's pulled in all of the contour information. So this is how surveyors go and put this information together. Alright, I've given you access to a separate video where you set up an A1 sheet and then you export these images which you can use and then do studies on other sites. Okay, so this workflow, it's becoming very important. The whole BIM, this whole BIM workflow requires you to understand the basics of using GIS. Okay. So once we've pulled in all our data, the last thing we need to do, if we want to start extracting good data and understanding how to use this data a bit better, we need to put it in the right geographical system. So for South Africa, typically, South Africa uses a very strange geographical system. Okay, it's very different to the rest of the world. So I'm going to show you how to set up a system that's in meters, because if you have to export something from here to AutoCAD, it won't export correctly because it's not in the correct units. So that's very important. Okay, so before you get too carried away with the project, it's recommended that you set up your geographical system. Okay, so we're going to use a projected system. Okay, this is very common for GIS. And then we're going to use the Universal Transverse Mercator UTM. So the abbreviation is the UTM system. Okay, so it's a projected system. Now there are thousands of them in here. So to find the one that you need, you'll need to scroll down or simply select one of the subcategories and hit W on your keyboard. So it will be a WGS system, but if you scroll down, keep scrolling down, we need to work with the W. So it's the WGS 84. Okay, so this system and the South African geographical system work hand in hand. And it's telling you that this will now all be in meters. Okay, this does have limited accuracy, but you'll see you can work very accurately depending on the data. Now, if you look at the map, wherever you zoomed in, it's telling you you actually are in this part of the world, so you need to pick the correct geographical system that falls within this search area of yours. So I know that it's a 34 south, for example, but if I go 33, so this is quite a neat way to understand how these systems work. Okay, now you can see that the system that I'm using falls within my study area. So I'm going to say apply, and then you'll notice it changes the code here, so it applies the new geographical system. Now, what typically happens is you'll find that your map gets all out of whack. Okay, so things can go south fast. So remove the information that you've loaded in. I'll explain why. So I'm just going to remove all this information, press OK, and I'm simply just going to start everything again because I'm working the right geographical system, and you'll notice that this will start working a lot more intuitively. Okay, so it's important to select your geographical system first. So I'm going to go and grab OpenStreetMap. I'm going to zoom to Cape Town. Now that I've set my geographical system, in my previous video I actually set this up quite early, but I wanted to explain if you set this late, you do have complications. Okay, but I found my site. Now I can simply just pull in the information again. So go back to Cape Town. So this does the conversion and puts it in the right location for you. So it does a bit of maths when it drags it in. But what I want to highlight here, and this is very important, if you're doing a study of an area, you get historical data as well. So the city of Cape Town have provided aerial photographs dating back to 1926. And what is quite amazing about Qgis, you can overlay different times over each other, and you can do a study of how things changed. So you can see, you can go and do an in-depth study of the area. Okay, so this is actually quite amazing. It's all free, open source, and then you can access all of their shape files. You've got access to everything. So just try and use this information. Look, this is not a requirement this year, but I think it's something that is very important to learn and understand. So I'm going to stop the video here because in my other videos I'm going to show you how you use different workflows to export images, export maps at certain scales, and add as a PDF, etc., etc. Okay, so the important takeaway is to make sure that you set the correct geographical system so you don't get misaligned data. Just understand when you've set your geographical system, when you've set this up in here, and you pull in the data, it is doing a calculation to put it in the right projection. Okay, so that's very important to understand. All right, so thank you for your time and good luck.